This is it. It's Red Friday. It is Super Bowl weekend, and your Kansas City Chiefs are about to be, at least in the morning, on their way to Tampa Bay to get ready for that game. We're going to talk about how they get it done, what they have to do, and who they have to stomp in order to get that second championship. This is RGR Football. Welcome back. This is a fun one. This is the one we've been waiting for all season long, right? I'm Ryan Tracy. This is the channel RGR Football. That's Dan Harms, who's going to help me figure out and navigate all the little bits and pieces. I'm pretty excited, I have to say. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, I've got this suspicion this year, so I've been wearing this since yesterday, and we're going to wear it all the way through to the Super Bowl. I just decided it was kind of time to remind myself, you know, they literally are defending Super Bowl champions, so this is going to be the ritual from now until Sunday.
I like it. I got to tell you, I broke out the cup. Yeah, it's all in there, folks. Our fearless mod is in here, Aaron Morrow. I know there's folks arriving. We'll have a good time. We'll try to answer a few questions, but we're going to go through our thoughts mostly on how they get this done at this game, a place that they've played before. And I looked at the weather earlier. I don't have it up in front of me right now, but I can't imagine a ton has changed. It does look like they're going to get some precipitation, but it's going to be a decent temperature. How worried are you about any rain coming down?
You know, I've actually seen reports that it's going to be like 10% chance by tomorrow. Like it's slowly diminishing in terms of how much, if they get any at all. And even if they do, to be honest with you, we all know that Mahomes can spin it in anything. Like he's done it in anything, in everything. It does not matter. It doesn't really impact them too much in terms of whether they can throw the football or not. The biggest thing I would be worried about is if they do get more rain than we're anticipating, the cleats kind of thing. Obviously, Tampa Bay knows the field. They play on it all the time. The Chiefs were there earlier. It wasn't all that wet, so they might have some issues with footing here and there. But in terms of the offense and what I expect them to run package-wise, I don't expect anything to change with precipitation.
Yeah, I think that's probably true as well. And honestly, Alan Wright and the equipment crew, they pack everything all the time anyway. It's not like they're going to be unprepared for any of this. I do think it might change a little bit, but I agree with you. That's exactly the quote that I went back to yesterday. Yeah. I can spin it in anything. And that's really what it comes down to, because at the end of the day, when you talk about what it might do to limit them, I hear a lot of people whose opinions I respect saying that if it does rain, that it favors the Bucs. I don't agree with that.
I don't really get where they're getting that from. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We've seen this Chiefs offense in the elements. We've seen it in the elements. We've seen the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a little bit with Tom Brady last week, 2 weeks ago, in some snow and cold. Like it looks different. I don't think that it has to turn into a running game. I think that's what they're assuming is you have to run the football more just because it rains. And that's not true anymore. This is not 1980, 90, early 2000s. This is 2021 now. Things are much different offensively. And they've done more things with technology, with cleat technology, with the footballs themselves. And they practice this kind of stuff. Mahomes, I guarantee you, has practiced with a wet ball all week to get used to that kind of thing. It's a completely different era we're in, and there's no more just because it rains, this turns into you have to run the football, so it favors the Buccaneers. I completely just don't agree with any of that nonsense.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think it's second nature, especially for analysts that are used to that being the alternatives, that you're going to go to that. Okay, I get where you're coming from, but I agree with you. That's not this game. That's why he's on the thumbnail for this live stream, folks, is because and it's not to take away from the rest of the roster, but it is he that overcomes these things. He that plays through the snow, that plays through the rain, that I really think allows them to drive through. I agree with you. I don't think they have to pull back the game plan, because I'll tell you this, in the secondary, Tyreek Hill cuts on a dime. He plants hard. Yeah. And so, there's a footing issue there. But I'll tell you this too. So do all the DBs. I see that as a draw, as a push between the two teams. It's about the quarterback delivering the ball, and I'll take Mahomes all day, every day until kingdom come, basically.
I agree with that. We've seen Tom Brady, it just kind of he's just been so up and down in the playoffs. Like I'm not entirely sold yet. So I'm gonna wait to get into my Buck stuff until we get further along in the show.
I'm with you. Okay, cool. Sexy Accident, welcome to the memberships.
I like that name.
I thought you had been there before, but if not, hey, accidents always do happen. So welcome. Doug Owens, good question. This was where I was going to go next anyway, so thank you for bringing it up. I think Sammy and Harm are going to have a big game. What are your thoughts? I think we have to start at the basics is that they were listing Sammy as questionable. I do think that he plays, but I don't think that it doesn't sound like he's 100%. That said, I don't think that matters. I think he still puts up a pretty good performance. I just don't know if it's going to be 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would imagine not unless they're kind of feigning this whole thing. He has practiced every week up until now, even outside of the first divisional game. He practiced the week up to the AFC Championship game. He's practiced up until now. So whether or not he's actually like 70, 60, whatever percentage he is, I'm not entirely sure. But I would bet he's closer to 80, 85% than they've been letting on. And the way that Andy responded to the comments about how he's looked good and he assumes he's going to play makes me think that he himself believes that he'll be a part of this offense and they can draw some things up for him.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. And I pulled back the curtain here a little bit so people can see that.
The whole nothing going on in my house right now, guys.
Right? Dan sounds like it's more echoey because it's more echoey. He's in the process
in here.
Right. He's getting ready to move. And I just wanted to show you guys a little peek. I do have an arrowhead back here.
Ooh,
that you don't usually get to see. And I think I put it in one video. I'll have to do that again. But just wanted to throw that out. Great title for your handle there, man. I like that one. What do you think of the O-line? I mean, I think they're going right down the path that we both kind of laid out last week. I don't feel like anything's changed. Do you, Dan?
Not necessarily. And I know there's been someone said something about Martinez Rankin being the starting right guard or left tackle for this game, or whatever it is. I don't believe that's the case. I expect Andrew Wiley to be the right tackle, and I expect Remmers to be the left tackle. I'm not entirely sure where they were getting their information on that. It might have been a misprint with the numbers, and they ran with it. But you're not going to see a cold body that's not a veteran in this game. And Rankin is exactly that. He's a guy who doesn't have much experience, and he's cold. Wisniewski can come in and play because he's a veteran. He knows the system. Like that's why you're going to see him at right guard. So I wrote an article on Arrowhead Guys this week about the offensive line specifically, and I think it's kind of being overblown. I know it's an issue, and if they're sitting back there for 3+ seconds every single drop back, yeah, that's going to be a problem. But we witnessed the Chiefs get the ball out in under 2.5 seconds on average against the Bills, and they weren't even blitzing him. They weren't getting much pressure on him in terms of guys in his face, up the middle, all that kind of stuff. They found ways to get the ball out quickly against the defense. I don't think now, obviously, that could always change. We don't know until we know. That's kind of how it is. But the offensive line is constructed, I think, can do enough to limit the Bucs front. I do believe they'll get their pressure. That's just kind of how they are, especially against 4 backup offensive linemen. I get that. It's going to happen. Yeah. But again, you have a great equalizer in Patrick Mahomes. So,
and that said, nothing against Rankin. We're talking about him being a starter, and we don't think that could happen because there's no reason to. Can he come in and play as a backup? Yes. If somebody else gets hurt, he's probably the first one off the bench at this point. I mean, Kilgore, if it's Ryder in particular, but we'll go there someday. Half a head of hair is better than none, but it is what it is. But what we're talking about, and I think it all comes back from the fact that they didn't actually say in the pressers this week, Andrew's going to be out there at right tackle. I think that he is. They don't generally put somebody up for a presser if he's not going to play. He did have the podium this week. It doesn't always mean it's going to happen, but it's an indicator. Maybe I rely on that a little bit more than seasoned beat writers do. And that's okay. I can live with that. Matt would tell me that I'm dumb. Don't read into that enough, but that's perfectly fine. That's why Matt's right about all that stuff. That said, I like the way that they're going. I'm perfectly comfortable with Wiz. If Rankin had to come in, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I think that'd be okay.
I'll be interested to see who's active. and if it's Durant, if there's both, if they're just kind of cover their bases, I'm not sure. Because if there is an injury elsewhere, you could see a scenario where Remmers has to go back inside.
Yeah.
If Grady twists his ankle, you don't know. And so that's something. But overall, I think we both feel that despite 13 pressures that the two ends in Barrett and JPP got last time, that they're going to get something similar to that. But that's not the end of the world. And again, Patrick equalizes it. The bigger thing for me, and this is what I want to hear from you first, how do you think that they go about route adjustment if they get into that first 15 and the protection isn't holding up? How do they adjust in your mind right off the bat?
Well, they're going to have to do some things different. I personally would like to see them do draw plays, running back draws. I think that would be a way to get the defensive line in the front four of the Buccaneers off of them a little bit. I know Andy Reid's not really prone to that, but you're also probably going to see some more tight end screens, running back screens in this game to help try to do everything they can to negate it. Definitely more RPOs. Probably try to attack the flats a little bit. If you can force the defensive ends to think about the ball to the flat, maybe get their hand up jump, then you can start doing some different things, going from flat to the middle of the field, and with Patrick Mahomes going from his right to his left or whatever he is, because he does like to look one area and then go a completely different spot and just rip it. He does that better than almost any quarterback in the NFL, I think, at this point. So like I said, I'd love to see some draw plays. I think that they could actually take advantage of some of the aggressiveness of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up front by doing that. I don't see him going that way, but it's an option. And I do believe that you're going to see the running backs involved in the pass game quite a bit in this game.
I like the draw idea. I think that would be a secondary way to do it. For me, I want to move the pocket right away. If one or the other, if either Barrett or JPP is like having a good get off right off the bat, I'm going to start moving the pocket there in the second drive or whatever, just to give that thing that allows Patrick to be him.
Yeah.
And then I'm cutting out all the slot and all Kelsey's routes to be tighter, because Kelsey shows he can hit that pivot route and get away from anybody. I'm sorry, Devin, he can get away from you too. So I'm not worried about that part. And even shortening the routes still moves the chains. I think you can beat them up a little bit that way. I will say this, though. The alignment's going to be critical for me. Mm-hmm. Because if they come out in a true wide 9, like we saw them do sometimes last time, that kind of negates what I think should be the focus of the run game in getting out to the pitches and the RPOs and getting outside. That also leaves you that draw space there in the B gap. So I kind of like that as well.
Yeah, they might try to force the Chiefs to run up in between the tackles by you coming on that wide 9, because they did attack the edges very well in the first game when they were able to find some success there. So they might try to do that. Obviously, they want the Chiefs to run the football because, one, it takes the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, and it plays right into their defensive strength, their front seven against the run. But that's not what they're going to do, and they're going to do everything they can. They're going to bring Demarcus Robinson in. They're going to have the running backs chip. They're going to have Travis Kelce chip. They did it against the Bills when they didn't necessarily need to. So they're definitely going to be doing that in this game to help anytime they can. That's going to allow Patrick to get that extra half second that he needs maybe to go to from his first to second read, which is he's very good at finding that first read. I'll tell you guys what, it's something else, the way he can set up the middle of the field and make things happen. So I think that they're going to be okay in terms of getting chips with the running backs and the tight ends. I think maybe Deion Yelder plays more in this game because he's a bigger body than Kaiser is and can maybe help a little bit more with the chipping. But if they do come out and try to force them to run the football, I mean, if you're in that wide 9, that allows Patrick to take his drop back and not have to drift, because then you're in actually a legitimate pocket. You don't have to drift all the way back, and it really that plays to the defensive end strength. So you can stay in that pocket and work it a little bit easier if they come out in that wide 9, in my opinion.
Well, and I like too, I think it's going to be more of a faux look, but lining up the H-back and showing that they want to do that inside underhand toss thing. Yeah. I think that has a way to constrict down the defensive front too. And you're right. I don't expect them to like back off and really bait them into running. I think it's going to be a 4-man rush all day long. They'll get selective when Todd gets frustrated. That's my thought. If the Chiefs move the ball well in the first, say, 3 drives, even if they don't score on all of them, and here I am. This is what covering this team does. Now I'm saying, ooh, if they don't score on all 3 first drives, right? Yeah, I gotta back off of that. But But I think the natural tendency is for Todd Bowles to want to go back to what he does and be aggressive, much like Spags, and want to send the blitz. If they do that, it's all about the quick replacement hot route that Patrick is so good at it, whether he's looking at it or not. And that does play into Devin White and his ability. They're not putting Lavonte David on Travis Kelce, folks. So I'm going to tell you that right now. If they blitz from that side, that means Devin has to take Kelce from the get-go, which means in about 6 steps, Kelce has an opportunity to get loose. So you have to time that up. And I think 2.2 is okay. I think 2.5 starts to get iffy, and I think 3 is a problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when you go back to watch the first game, Devin White is a very, very good player. He's very promising. He's got all the tools you want in a linebacker, but he took advantage of him on almost every RPO. They did exclusively to his side when they threw the RPOs. All he's reading that linebacker to his left side or his right side where he's reading. He looks at him as soon as he starts to move towards the run play. He pulls it and he throws it. Even the best athlete that Devin White is, he can't recover in time to make a play on the football. So that's why they did that so much in the first game with the RPOs, is because they moved him. I think that the Buccaneers are going to be more apt to watching the play go on with their eyes and see and try to get in those lanes first. And that's where you're going to see the flat become more of an option, because they took advantage of White and moving him with the slants behind him. They threw behind him to his left, to his right with those slants. And maybe now with him staying, try to get in those passing lanes, you're going to see some of the flat, maybe Travis Kelce does a little out route and gets 5 or 6, 7 yards on that instead of a slant route for 10. So they're going to have much more route combinations they can work off, especially if they're being more disciplined with their eyes.
Well, and I'll tell you, that all feeds into my thought as well, is this is how Clyde gets in the ballgame. With them being able to stop the run pretty well, it negates some of that. But here, and somebody asked earlier in the week, I'm sorry if I didn't get an answer back to you, about how Lev and Clyde are going to look in this game. Lev's going to be a break glass guy. This is going to be Daryl and Clyde all day long. And the key for me is, especially if Lavonte David's hamstring is not 100%, and they do what we expect them to do, which is not particularly they might take a chance and let their linebackers just line up where they're comfortable, and whoever gets Travis gets Travis. I don't think that's what they're going to do. But if it does come down that Devin White is on Travis Kelce, that means that Lavonte David has to cover all the way out to the sidelines, which means the swings and everything that turns up from the running back position is in fair game. That's where Clyde and Daryl particularly make their hay. You remember how many times Daryl scoots up the sideline because he's good at it. And with Lavonte not 100% on his wheels, and I don't care what they say if he's 100% or not, I know that he's not. And I think that gives them a big advantage. Now, I know you guys have a lot of questions about the Tampa Bay offense. We're going to get to that here in a minute. But that said, Sammy not 100%, but should play.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where the matchups versus their secondary are best?
To be honest with you, I don't think that they have anybody that can line up one-on-one and beat any of the Chiefs' number 1, 2, and 3 wide receivers. I think Sammy Watkins, probably their least one to be able to get loose in this game because he's not fully healthy. He could show us wrong, but that's going to be a matchup. If he's one-on-one, you probably favor a little bit more. I think he's going to have opportunities there. Tyreek, we've seen it. They don't have anybody. Their best man cover guy, Carlton Davis, was on him in the last matchup, and it didn't matter. So I think they're going to come out and play more zone. I know that they want to play more man coverage because that's what they're very good at and that's what they've been successful in. But you can't really man up this Chiefs team, especially if you're trying to get hands on guys at the line of scrimmage. So I think that their attention is going to drift to Tyreek early, and that's going to set up Kelce immediately. I think that he's going to have the matchup to go to in the first quarter, second quarter, and that's going to be where they're going to have to adjust.
I'm with you, and I have a little bit more of a specific thing. I haven't seen Todd do this on anyone else other than who was it? Now I'm blanking. A premier receiver of his time. I can't remember who the matchup was. But here's how you can choose to attack it. Terez earlier this week when we talked was a big advocate and thinks they're going to go into a cover 2 man look where they're getting hands on, but they have 2 safeties over the top. I agree with that in concept, but I think the other thing that you can do is play the 6, which is a quarter, and a half. And that way you can allow for the fact that your guy pressing Tyreek Hill is probably going to get beat.
Yeah.
And still have a dedicated safety over the top of it. That's the concept. That's the best scheme, I think, to try to take him away without dedicating everything to it. But here's where the problem lies. I think the Chiefs are going to come out, and I think they're going to go into their 3 wide sets, and I think they're going to try to flood that short side safety zone with multiple receivers. And these safeties, A, aren't healthy, and B, aren't that experienced. I don't think there's any way they can cope with it. So unless their corners can win at the line of scrimmage and not allow the Chiefs receivers off the line, I think there is still plenty of opportunity to get downfield and attack those safeties deep. And it's all dependent on that pass rush that we already talked about. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think that especially you want to test those safeties early with them not being fully healthy. If you can manufacture some more protection up front, maybe do some max protect and just send some guys deep, that may be a good idea for them early. You move the pocket a little bit. You get some guys running deep down the field against the safeties. That might be where they start. I feel that they're going to bracket Hill personally. I think that's what they're going to want to do because much like Bill Belichick has shown in the past that he can try to do what he can to take away your best guy. And I think that they're going to want to emulate that as best they can. The only problem is that prevents you from being able to double Travis Kelce, who's going to essentially be a one-on-one with a linebacker. And that's a win every day, in my opinion.
Yeah. You guys, I'm just going to give up. I can't keep all the offense, defensive questions here. So we will bounce back and forth. So let's go over to the other side for a minute. It's not that he worries me in total production. It's that he has a knack against this team of coming up with big plays. And quite frankly, they didn't even use him last week until the end when they really needed him. So when it gets into that second half, that fourth quarter in particular, when they need something, the Chiefs safeties have to unlock the fact that they haven't seen him do much to this point, and they have to concentrate on him, in my opinion. Well,
the thing for me is that Cameron Brate appeared on the injury report late this week, and he did not practice. I think it was today, or he was limited yesterday, or he didn't practice yesterday and was limited today. One of the two. I think that's going to force Gronk into more playing time, and that's where I think that they can actually attack because Gronk has shown, even in their last game against the Chiefs, he was a vital part of that passing offense. He was able to get guys down the middle of the field and down the seams where he's most productive against guys like Sorensen, who's not as big, Matthew, who's not as big, linebackers who aren't necessarily as good in the open field. Now Willie Gay not on the field. So I think that that's something that they can exploit early. Now, if they were to use 2 tight end sets, I think that would be more to their advantage in chunking their way down the field. They're not going to get those huge explosive plays like they want, but that could be a way they could attack the defense because the linebackers, the team's not very good against tight ends, and they haven't been. You saw it against the Browns, and Njoku tore them up pretty good. So I think that's something they might look to exploit early.
Well, it's the same thing with Sexy's question. It's about beating them up early, getting the physicality in there. And I think that the Bucs want to be physical on offense. Whether they can sustain that or not is a different question. But the effectiveness of that run game, while it is a concern because the Chiefs don't stop the run that well, and that's okay. They don't feel they need to. Every time you do that, I feel you're taking opportunities away from yourself to put more points on the board than Patrick can. It's great to have long drives, but we've seen all season long, everybody who tries to keep the ball away from him ends up losing in the end because they're not as explosive. Explosive plays is what matters here, and I think they can't get bogged down in that. If they do that, they're going to come away because it gives the defense more opportunity to get a stop. They get a stop and they make them kick 3. You're already behind. And I think that's the way that this goes. So I don't think that they're going to do that. I think they'll come to it if they have to. If the Chiefs are on fire early on their defensive side and they're getting stops and they're getting their hands on passes, and if they can force some defensive stops in the first couple of series, I think they might go to the run, again, to try to loosen things up. But I don't think it can be the focus for the Bucs. Do you?
And I don't think it will be either because Tom Brady is how you win this football game if you're the Buccaneers. You're not going to run the football on like every other drive and every other play to try to slow down the Chiefs offense. They scored 24 points in like 3.5 minutes against the Patriots in the 2018 AFC Championship game. Like, it doesn't take much for the Chiefs to score offensively. The big plays are going to come. And luckily for the Chiefs defense, they're one of the best secondaries in terms of limiting explosive plays. They've been great all season long at it, and I think that they're going to continue to be that way. So the Bucs are going to have to be patient, but they're still going to have to throw the football a lot and get those intermediate and short areas and allowing time to get the ball out fast. If you start running the football, all it takes is one play where Derek Nottie, Chris Jones get in the backfield, and you're now 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, 2nd and 12. That is a problem for the Bucs offense because that's when you have to throw the ball down the field. And as good as Tom Brady is and has been, his downfield throws and throws outside the numbers have been erratic at times. And that's where you might find some issues. He threw 3 picks against the Packers, and they end up winning that game. That's not something that's going to happen against the Chiefs if you turn the ball over 3 times. Yeah. Patrick Mahomes is going to go down the field, and he's going to score every time.
And if he will be under pressure if that situation comes through.
Yeah.
And I'm all for Mike Evans. I said it the other day. If there is a non-quarterback that has a chance to win an MVP in this game, I think it's Mike Evans. Because if the Bucs can pull off a win, it has to go through him. Yeah, there is no other way to win this game without Mike Evans. So for me, I agree with you. And if he is blitzed like that, I feel like Breland and Ward can hold up long enough under a pressured throw that either L'Jarius or Tyron or Sorensen will get there. And don't be surprised, folks, if you see 6-man blitzes. I mean, there was a cover 0 blitz that he threw 2 weeks ago. Spags will not hesitate, and I think that's important. I want to cover this because this is what I'm afraid of. Folks, I know there's an ongoing situation. It's not Andy. It's Britt Reed, his son, the outside linebackers coach. I only heard about it when the press release came out about half an hour before we started this stream. I'm getting texts and things from beat reporters and folks that know things. So far, it has nothing to do with Andy Reid at all. As I understand right now, Britt Reed will not make the trip. He's out of it. He's got his own issues. He will not be part of this game, and that's fine. It's now about Andy and the team refocusing themselves and not letting it be a distraction. I think they can do that.
I think they can. It's just 2 distractions this week already. Like, that's the kind of thing you don't want to have happen. And if we're being honest, this whole Super Bowl week leading up to it probably prevents this from happening. So you're kind of seeing COVID not only impact the Chiefs in terms of they had 2 close contacts this week, but they're not in Tampa Bay right now. And you see some weird things happen. And that's not to say that they wouldn't have happened anyway. It's just kind of an affecting kind of thing I'm looking at in my own mind. The Chiefs were here. They brought in a barber to cut everybody's hair, get 2 close contacts. Like, that could have been Patrick Mahomes. You guys, it's just a whole
I can take care of hair, bro.
a whole weird thing that may have been avoided without the COVID situation. It's so they can refocus. They've done it all year. They've dealt with the outside distraction that has been COVID. So I think that they have more than enough to get it done. And it just shows you that if they continue to go on this path and win the Super Bowl, it will be one of the most impressive Super Bowl wins for either team because of what's gone on this season alone.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's going to be an asterisk in the history books, but there should also be an asterisk about how much they had to do to get it done. Shout out to Eric Peregrine. Glad you made it back, Eric. Trying to make sure we cover everything else before I flip over and we talk about just how aggressive Spags needs to be. There's Dirty Dan questions. Okay, so I think you guys are all pretty much on my same thing. Holly, we just answered your question. And folks, this is the game plan video. I want to get caught up in this off the field stuff. We know that it's going to be what it is. And so on the field, I think this is what it comes down to. Spags is 3-2 against Brady, period. Yeah. And he's had his number in the Super Bowl. I don't think that changes. I think the key for Spags is he can't send the same blitz as he sent last time. Tom Brady watches film. He's excellent at it. Let no one take anything away from him versus Peyton versus Drew Brees. They all watch film at the top level. The key is you can't show them the same look that you showed them last time. So you have to move things around. And I think that's kind of sugar and more with the backers and sending the safeties myself. And that doesn't exclude Snead. Snead, I think, will be lined up in the slot a lot. So I think he will be the guy that comes quite a bit. But also, I think it comes down to the speed. The disadvantage the Chiefs have against the run is the advantage they have in the blitz. Because all their linebackers are undersized and don't take on blocks, but they're all quick.
Yeah.
And especially when you're running that nickel with Sorensen, he's the guy that can actually do the loop more effectively because he's got the speed. I just hope that they don't get too carried away. My fear is that they're going to run him all the way around 3 gaps, and that's not going to pay off. Not against Brady.
No, it won't. It'll be too quick. He'll get the ball out before that happens.
Yeah.
The one thing I think they can take advantage of is that the Buccaneers running backs have been very bad in picking up late blitzes. You can get some stunts around. They have not been able to do it lately. And I don't know what goes on when whether it's a miscommunication, if they're reading the wrong thing. But Spags has been so good at showing one thing and doing another that I think that he's going to be able to take advantage of some of these running backs in the backfield and get a free guy in Tom Brady's face pretty quickly. And that's going to come with the guys on the outside being in position for the first 3 seconds of the snap. Like they kind of have to be there. That's how they're going to be able to get pressure on Brady. That's how Chris Jones and the linebackers, the looping stunts, are going to be able to get there, because you want pressure up the middle. You don't want it from the outside. Tom Brady can just kind of step up and then do what he does best, which is move the pocket very well. He moves well, better than probably any quarterback that ever lived inside the pocket. That's why he's done it for so long. But if you can get in his face, Tershawn Morton and some of these late blitzing linebackers and catch some of the running back sleeping, that's how you're going to be able to get to Brady and get him on his back, which you start hitting him. We saw it. We saw it against the Saints the second time around. They hit him, and they hit him a lot. And he threw the ball all over the field, and they got blown out.
Well, and I'll tell you this. When you guys are watching the game, when you see what looks like an odd shift where Wharton in particular, but Jones as well, is farther over than you expect, right? Watch what happens, because that's one of the ways, by getting that shift, that you force Brady to go the opposite direction, because you're overloading that side. Yeah. The overload blitz in particular is effective against Brady because, for one thing, he can't get away from it as well. And secondly, because it puts so much stress, usually on the tackle, but can also be on the guard, because you send too many bodies for that one guy to block. And especially if you have Snead coming off the hot corner, he knows he can get there. He's seen it on film. I think that is the obvious way to start the blitz package and then change it up from there.
Yes, the speed they have is one of the advantages they're going to be able to use with their blitzes. Like you said, it's something that Spags has shown, especially in the postseason, that he's not afraid to take anybody. He blitzed Thornhill against the Bills. Like, now that Thornhill's fully healthy, I think he feels much more confident in what he does with his blitzes, because he has a safety that can stay back there and now patrol the field, whether he's got to go right, whether he's got to go left. That's something that they didn't have earlier in the season. And luckily for the Chiefs, Tom Brady is going to throw the ball down the field a lot in this game. That's just Bruce Arians' mindset, throw the ball down the field. Thornhill is my dark horse to win the MVP if it's not a quarterback. I think this is the game that you can see him get his hands on the football, because Tom Brady still throws it down the field, but it hangs a bit. It does hang a little bit. He doesn't have that zip that he used to have to get it down the field and that Mahomes has. That gives Thornhill an edge getting down the field. He's already in position for the most part. So I think that this is just the game for, if you're going to have a defensive performance to shut down, this Bucs offense is going to be on Juan Thornhill.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I hope that it happens. I'm just going to tell you guys this. It doesn't really matter what any of the defenders do. It's going to be a quarterback that wins the MVP. Especially these two quarterbacks. Whoever wins this game, their quarterback will be the MVP. I mean, I don't want to shake the tray or nothing, but that's what's going to happen.
You take away my thought.
I'm just saying. But I think Juan is definitely in position, and the fact that he gives him that over the top.
Yeah.
And he said in his press conference today, and obviously none of this is always taken at face value. Everybody exaggerates or literally misdirects in these things. But Juan says he feels 100%.
That's so big.
I'd put him at like 97-ish, but I'll take 100 all day, right? And it's not just what it allows Spags to do, it's what it allows Tyron to do.
Yeah.
And I said this in all over this week, and people look at me like I'm crazy. It's not Patrick against Tom. It's Tyron against Tom. At the end of the day, Patrick's going to get his. It's whatever you can do to stop Tom from keeping up. And I think that comes down to Tyron. Juan's a good one there.
It's just it matches up. It sets up so perfectly for them. I think that they can take advantage of some of those deep shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. And I think Snead could get his hands on a pass as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that it won't happen, but I feel like the two safeties, especially given as the game wears on, I do feel like Chris Jones in particular, but I think Frank has a good shot at getting some pressure too. And when the game's on the line and they can get in his face late, I think that's when he is going to go for it. And I agree with you that BA is going to have him go for it all game long.
Yeah.
BA would rather lose by 40 than 3.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it. And I happen to agree with him. I like his attitude, to tell you the truth.
Makes more sense, because if you're just setting for field goals the whole time, I mean, you're not really risking anything.
Yeah. Folks, this is the last time I'm going to address it. I see a lot more questions in. It's not Andy Reid missing a game. It's Britt. Not going to be a problem. His game day responsibilities are next to nothing anyway.
Yeah.
So you're not going to see a disruption other than the fact they have to circle the wagon, stay focused. That's it. We'll deal with the outpour of when we know what happened, when we happen. We'll talk about that next week. But if you're new, click the like and the sub and the bell notification now, because we're almost through. Just before I put Dan on the spot, because I think you've all heard my prediction by now, since I've been saying it since Wednesday when I first got on the spot myself. How do you feel that this goes?
I have a very, very crazy feeling, and I know that there's probably going to be some Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans in here that don't like what I say and think I'm just a Chiefs homer, but I think that the Chiefs have an opportunity to blow the Buccaneers out. I think that the road through the NFC was much less. It didn't look as difficult. The Buccaneers didn't play very well on offense, and they were able to get lucked out. They turned the ball over a bunch of times against Aaron Rodgers, and the defense stepped up and made them pay. So I don't think that's the same thing that's going to happen with Patrick Mahomes. They just blew out the Bills, guys. They blew them out, and it wasn't close. I think that might be what happens here, and it's going to look closer at the end, just like the Bills game did. I think it's going to be a 38-24 win, but it's not that close.
I like that you think it ends at 14. I am hopeful that you're right, because I'm not that optimistic. I agree with you that I feel like the game goes and it's a bigger game, and then they let them come back a little bit at the end like they always do. I actually said it the other day, and people gave me grief. I think it's 34-31. I think that if we don't give the respect, especially to the wide receiver group, I think Godwin could be a problem. Snead handled him really well the first time. Usually a guy who gets a second chance at a rookie is able to pick some steam up. So I'm going to say that. But bottom line, the Chiefs, it's theirs to lose at this point, as far as I'm concerned. I see nothing else that tells me different.
No, I agree, and that's not taking anything away from the Bucs. They've been together one season, and they've done great to get to where they are, and a lot of that is Tom Brady, because you figure last year Jameis Winston couldn't do this with this team, and I guess I know the Antonio Brown thing is what it is, but he's not fully healthy. I'm not sure he'll be much impact on this game myself. I think Chris Godwin's going to be more impactful than Mike Evans is personally, and he presents more of an overall issue. And I like the Bucs defense. I like it a lot. I just think this is a particularly bad matchup for them.
Yeah. I love Breeland. I think Bashard Breeland could come up with a pass or two here as well, because I think Tom has to go back to trying to force it to Evans.
The last 2 games that they played against Tom Brady, Breeland's picked them off in both games.
Yeah.
Like he's just seems to be able to pick off Tom Brady. Like that's just kind of what he's done.
Yeah. Holly, I'll put it this way. It depends who you're talking about. If you're talking to analysts like Orlovsky, who's played the game, I give that a lot more weight than, the talk show hosts in Coward or any of those guys. So
Colin Coward makes me funny, makes me laugh.
He makes you funny?
It makes me funny because I get to make fun of him, and that makes me funny. He's just talking some crazy stuff about how Tom Brady's playing for revenge and Mahomes is playing for fun. Did you guys watch the 2018 game where Mahomes had to sit on the bench as Tom Brady dissected a defense that would not adjust? There are players on this team still from that 2018 team that lost in the AFC Championship game. That's going to be on their minds.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. You can ignore most of the stuff that you see on TV. I'll just tell you that. People are not going to give you the truth most of the time. And I will say this caveat: there are some people that some networks make take the other side, whether they believe it or not. So
that's very true. Read
that into it as well. But that said, you know what we think, and we'll tell you from the heart every time, just like always. We'll also tell you some more because Daniela's going to have a video for you tomorrow. the Kingdom Corner last of the season. And I'll give you something short on Sunday morning, last minute thoughts or whatever, after we see what's gone on. Dan will be busy. He's got a baby and a move coming and all kinds of stuff. But my family's just so ready for the Super Bowl to be over. They're like, just do whatever you got to do. Get it over with. It's almost here. So we will have more for you. I hope that you guys enjoy your weekend right up to the game time. Then we'll all experience it together. We will be live after the Super Bowl. It'll take a little bit. I got to do the podcast as well. If you're not a Locked On Chiefs subscriber yet, go get that podcast because we gave you all kinds of stuff all week long. More so than I can ever cover here on one live stream. So thank you for your time, Dan. Thanks for your time tonight when you're busy.
No problem. It's the best. This is it. It's what we've waited all season for. It's time to run it back.
Yeah, I'm ready. I hope you guys enjoy the game. We will talk to you afterwards. Have a great weekend.